The average American household spends over $500 a year on plug-in air fresheners, scented candles, and chemical sprays. Yet we still walk into our kitchens and catch the ghost of last night's salmon, still open a closet and get hit with a stale mustiness that no lavender sachet can cover. Meanwhile, my friend Yuki, living in a compact Tokyo apartment that's older than my grandmother, spends exactly $0 on synthetic fragrance products, and every single time I step through her door, I am wrapped in a scent that I can only describe as a serene forest right after a soft spring rain. It is not magic. It is not some exclusive Japanese air. It is a set of 20 deceptively simple, deeply intentional cleaning tricks that her mother taught her, and her grandmother taught her mother, all designed to make a home smell fresh not by masking odors, but by systematically preventing them and layering pure, natural freshness into every fiber of the house. These habits are so straightforward they will shock you. Others are so quietly genius you will wonder why no one ever told you. Today I am handing all 20 of them to you, ranked from clever to life-altering. So that starting tonight, your home can breathe that same clean, sacred air. Let's begin with number 20, a trick so obvious it barely feels like a secret, yet 90% of Western homes never practice it. Japanese people air out their entire living space, every room, twice a day, for 10 full minutes, regardless of the weather. They call it mado wo akaru, simply opening the windows, and they treat it like a non-negotiable ritual. The surprising mechanism here is not just about letting stale air out. By creating a cross breeze, you flush out the accumulation of carbon dioxide, off-gassing from furniture, and the microscopic moisture that feeds odor-causing bacteria. A 2021 study from the Tokyo Institute of Technology found that indoor air in unventilated rooms can have up to 5 times the concentration of volatile organic compounds compared to outdoor air. And those compounds are precisely what our noses interpret as that generic, tired, home smell. I remember the first time I stayed at Yuki's apartment in the dead of January. I bundled myself in layers, dreading the blast of cold. But she simply threw open both balcony doors, smiled, and said, "The air must move, or the house suffocates." I stood there shivering for a moment, but after she closed them, the entire apartment felt lighter, cleaner, as if the space itself had just exhaled. The cold air that rushed in carried the faint, clean scent of Tokyo's winter, a mix of crisp oxygen and the earthy aroma of the tatami mats, so much purer than the stale, recycled heat I had been breathing. Even my own chronic morning stuffiness vanished within 3 days of adopting this. If it's raining, don't skip it. The humidity outdoors is still fresher than the trapped spores inside. Prop the windows with a towel to catch drips, but let the air exchange happen. So tonight before bed, open 2 opposing windows. Do it again first thing in the morning. It costs nothing, and it is the foundation upon which every other trick is built. Moving to number 19, we step into the Genkin, the sacred entryway where outdoor dirt is never allowed to cross the threshold. And we talk about the power of a single, natural mist. In many Japanese homes, after cleaning the Genkin floor with a damp cloth, a small spray bottle filled with water, and just a single drop of hinoki cypress essential oil is kept on the shoe rack. The mechanism is twofold. That microfine mist immediately captures any floating dust particles and pulls them to the ground. And the hinoki oil releases phytoncides, the same antimicrobial compounds trees emit in forests, which actively neutralize airborne bacteria that cause sour shoe odors. A research group from Kyoto University reported that hinoki phytoncides reduced airborne mold spores by nearly 40% in controlled home environments. I bought my first small bottle of hinoki oil at a tiny shop in the Asakusa district, skeptical that one drop in water could make a dent in my family's chaotic entryway, with its pile of sneakers and winter boots. I remember the shop near the Sensojai temple. The owner, an elderly man with hands that trembled slightly, held up a bottle of pure hinoki and told me, "This is the scent of Japanese forests. Do not confuse it with the chemical imitations. Those will not clean your air. They will poison it." He was right. The first time I used a synthetic pine spray, my entryway smelled like a car air freshener and my headache lasted for hours. So I must caution you, hunt for the real steam-distilled oil. It costs a bit more, but one bottle lasts a year, and it actually purifies rather than just adding to the chemical stew. Now, I miss that corner every evening after everyone's shoes are put away, and the transformation is startling. The Jenkin no longer smells like a locker room. It smells like a temple pathway. Try it tonight. You do not need a special diffuser. Just water and a pure, undiluted hinoki or cedar oil. One spritz and you reclaim your entryway. Number 18 is the quiet, unassuming workhorse of Japanese odor control, bamboo charcoal, known as takesumi. You have probably seen little linen bags of charcoal hanging in Japanese closets, tucked into shoes, or lounging in the corner of a refrigerator. The surprising detail is that these unassuming black chunks are not just passive absorbers like baking soda. Their microscopic porous structure, a result of being fired at extremely high temperatures, creates millions of tiny chambers that physically trap odor molecules and moisture. And then, remarkably, they can be refreshed simply by placing them in direct sunlight for a few hours once a month. The science is well documented. Researchers at the University of Tokyo have measured the surface area of a single gram of high-quality takesumi at over 1,000 square meters. I placed 3 bags in my hall closet, where a persistent mustiness had survived multiple boxes of baking soda. And within 48 hours, the smell was not just masked, it was gone. When I stuck a small charcoal stick into my gym bag, my wife finally stopped quarantining it in the garage. Start with your shoe rack and your linen closet. Place 1 bag per shelf. For a few dollars, you get a deodorizer that lasts a lifetime. Just be vigilant. Some companies sell charcoal bags soaked in cheap fragrance oils to mimic freshness. Avoid them. Real takesumi is odorless itself, and it works by silence. You can recognize it by its matte black color and a slight hollow sound when tapped. Place it in direct sunlight every 3 to 4 weeks for a few hours, and the trapped odor molecules will be released and the charcoal reborn. Number 17 takes us to the balcony, where on any clear morning in Japan, you will see futons draped over railings, soaking up the sun. This practice, futon boshi, is among the most powerful smell-eradicating habits I have ever encountered. And it has nothing to do with laundry detergent. The shocking mechanism is ultraviolet light. The sun's UV rays penetrate the fabric and destroy the DNA of dust mites and bacteria that feed on the dead skin cells we shed each night. Those microorganisms, not the sweat itself, are the true source of that stale, sour bed smell that commercial sprays can never quite touch. A public health bulletin from the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare highlights that sun-drying bedding for at least 2 hours significantly reduces allergen levels and microbial growth. I'll never forget the first time I dragged my heavy American mattress topper out onto my tiny apartment balcony, feeling ridiculous, and then that night I buried my face in it and inhaled. It smelled like warm cotton and sunshine, a scent no dryer sheet has ever replicated. I later moved to a place with only a small fire escape, but I still hauled my pillows out there every sunny Saturday morning. Passers-by below would glance up, but the reward was a bed that smelled of sunshine and a breeze. One caution, though: if you live in a high-pollen area, you might want to do this on a day when the pollen count is low, or give them a good shake inside before bringing them back in. Even if you do not have outdoor space, Position your pillows and blankets in a sunbeam by a window for a full afternoon. Do this once a week, and your bedroom will start smelling like a high-end Ryokan inn. Number 16 is a trick that will change how you mop your floors forever. Using something you pour down the drain every single day. The water left over from washing white rice, kom no togi juru, is a milky, enzyme-rich liquid that Japanese households have used for centuries to wipe down wooden floors, kitchen counters, and even soak cutting boards. The surprising benefit for scent is that these enzymes gently break down the microscopic proteins and fats that harbor odor-causing bacteria, leaving behind not a perfumed cover-up, but a completely neutral, clean nothingness that is the truest definition of fresh. A study from the Department of Food Science at Nara Women's University confirmed that rice water exhibits significant antibacterial activity against common kitchen pathogens. When I first tried this, pouring the cloudy water into a bucket and dipping my mop, I braced myself for a starchy, sour aftermath. Instead, my wooden kitchen floor dried to a soft matte sheen, and the faint, lingering oil smell from last night's stir-fry was simply erased. One honest warning: rice water is a living liquid. If you let it sit out at room temperature for more than a couple of hours, it will begin to ferment. You'll know because it will smell slightly sour, and then you've just created a new odor problem. So use it fresh, right after you've rinsed the rice for your meal. Strain out any stray grains, and get to mopping immediately. Your home will smell like absolutely nothing, and that is perfection. Number 15 is the daily act of wiping down wooden surfaces and tatami edges with a cloth dampened in cooled green tea. Japanese households often keep a pot of leftover sencha or bancha for this purpose, a habit called achafuki. The mechanism here is the catechins, powerful antioxidants in green tea that inhibit bacterial growth and also neutralize alkaline odors through a gentle acidic action. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Wood Science found that surfaces treated with green tea extract showed a measurable reduction in odor-causing microbes for over 24 hours. I spent a weekend at a traditional inn in Hakone, where the elderly owner wiped the narrow wooden corridors every evening with a pale green cloth, and the air that rose from the floorboards was distinctly crisp, herbal, and ancient. This practice reminded me of a visit to a small Rinzai temple in Kamakura, where a young monk was wiping the wooden veranda with a tea-soaked cloth. He moved with such slow, deliberate grace that the very act seemed to polish the air. I asked him what tea he used, and he smiled and said, "Any tea you would drink, the floor may also drink." From that day, I never thought of cleaning as a chore but as an offering. Now every Sunday I steep a strong bowl of cheap green tea, let it cool, and run a cloth over my nightstands, my table, and the windowsills. Be sure to wring the cloth very well. You don't want water standing on the wood, just a barely damp film. It is a meditative, silent act that erases the weak staleness and infuses the grain of the wood with a scent so subtle it feels like the room is breathing. Number 14 is the Jenkenshu ritual taken to its most genius level. Beyond just removing shoes, the Japanese habit of immediately airing out worn footwear and inserting untreated cedar wood inserts or small charcoal sachets overnight prevents the deep-seated bacterial colonies that turn shoe odor into a permanent tenant. The surprising detail is temperature. Bacteria thrive in the warm, dark, moist interior of a leather pump or a sneaker, but by opening the tongue, removing the insole, and placing the shoes in a cool, dry, well-ventilated spot, you crash their population before they can multiply. The cedar wood emits a natural oil that is hostile to fungi. I purchased a simple cedar shoe tree from a hardware store in Kyoto after noticing that my host family's shoe closet, packed with dozens of pairs, smelled only of subtle wood and fresh air. My own home closet, in contrast, had a funk so aggressive it curled my nose. Now I never leave my shoes in a dark pile. I air them, insert a cedar form, and the difference is so profound that I sometimes open the shoe cabinet just to enjoy the faint woody freshness. Do not be tempted by those brightly colored deodorizing balls that promise a fresh scent. They only add a chemical layer that mixes with the foot odor into something even more offensive. Pure, untreated cedar wood and nothing else. I once bought a pack of scented silica pouches, and the sweet perfume made my closet smell like a candy store crossed with a gym. I tossed them immediately. Stick to nature. Go get a pack of untreated cedar blocks and give your shoes a nightly reset. It will shock you how quickly the entire hallway lightens. Number 13 is the quiet ceremony of lighting incense after cleaning, but not the thick, heady sticks you might imagine. In Japan, ko is used as a punctuation mark, a final seal over a freshly cleansed space, burned for just a few minutes to purify the air with sandalwood, aloes wood, or a delicate floral blend. The crucial distinction is that ko is never lit to mask a bad smell. It is lit only after the room has been cleaned of all physical dirt and open to air. This intentionality transforms a simple fragrance into a sensory signal to the brain that the space is now sacred and complete. Researchers at Tohoku University have found that the inhalation of specific plant-derived aromatics can lower cortisol levels and shift the autonomic nervous system toward a relaxed state, making the home feel not only olfactory fresh, but emotionally refreshed. A crucial caution: the incense you choose must be pure. Many Western incense sticks are made with a charcoal base and drenched in artificial fragrance oils. When burned, they produce a thick, acrid smoke that coats your walls in a sticky residue and can irritate your lungs. Japanese ko, by contrast, is traditionally kneaded from powdered wood spices and a natural binder with no synthetic fixatives. You want the simple, slender sticks of sandalwood or aloes wood, perhaps from a brand like Shiedo or Nippon Kodo. Their smoke is fine and gentle, and it leaves behind only a whisper of the divine. I adopted this after watching my Japanese neighbor strike a match every evening at sunset, walking one small burning stick around her living room before placing it in a ceramic holder. I now do the same after I finish my nightly kitchen wipe down. That slender thread of sandalwood smoke tells my nervous system that the work is done. The air is clean and it is time to rest. Try a short stick of natural incense, no more than 5 minutes, and only after you have already cleaned. This is the secret to making freshness feel like a presence, not a product. Number 12 harnesses the power of rice vinegar, or su, for the single most odor-producing zone in any home. Wiping down kitchen counters, sink basins, and even the insides of trash bins with a solution of 1 part rice vinegar to 3 parts water eliminates the bacteria that feast on microscopic food residue and produce that sour, greasy kitchen smell. The mechanism is acetic acid, which breaks down the cell membranes of gram-negative bacteria, the very ones responsible for the most offensive food spoilage odors. The Japanese have used su as a natural disinfectant in their kitchens for centuries, and its mild, fleeting scent evaporates in minutes, leaving behind absolutely nothing but a sterile surface. I remember the first time I ditched my lemon-scented antibacterial spray, which left a cloying chemical fog, and instead used a simple vinegar rag. My entire kitchen smelled like a clean glass of water. The pan I'd seared tuna in no longer left a ghost. The trash pull-out no longer whispered decay when I opened the cabinet. Make a spray bottle of diluted rice vinegar, and do a final wipe of every food contact surface before you go to bed. In the morning, your kitchen will smell as innocent as if it had never been cooked in. A small but vital caution: never use undiluted rice vinegar on marble, granite, or other natural stone countertops, as the acid can etch the surface. On those, you must use an even weaker solution or stick to plain water with a bit of dish soap. But for stainless steel sinks, tile, and sealed wood, the diluted vinegar is a miracle. I once made the mistake of putting a strong vinegar spray on my friend's marble pastry slab and left a faint, dull spot. I never forgot that. So test in an inconspicuous area first, then let this simple potion transform your kitchen. Number 11 is a winter tradition that fills an entire apartment with the most joyful, clean citrus scent without a single watt of electricity. In Japan, yuzu, a fragrant citrus fruit, is often floated whole in hot baths during the winter solstice, but more commonly, leftover peels from mikan or yuzu are simply dropped into a small pot of simmering water on the stove and left to gently release their oils for an hour or two. The surprising olfactory science is that the volatile oils released by citrus peels contain limonene, a terpene that not only smells profoundly uplifting, but also actively dissolves airborne fatty compounds, effectively cleaning the air as it scents it. The Japan Aroma Society has published observations on the mood-elevating and air-purifying perception associated with yuzu aroma. I spent a February in my friend's Nagoya apartment where she always had a little enamel pot bubbling on the rear burner, filled with spent mikan peels and a handful of whole cloves. The steam carried a bright, spicy citrus cloud that erased the stale, recirculated heater air and made the entire home smell like an orchard in midwinter. Do this tomorrow with any citrus peels you have. Use a low simmer, keep an eye on the water level, and let your whole home be filled with a scent so fresh and natural, it will make your artificial plug-in seem absurd. One warning from experience: never leave the pot unattended. I got engrossed in a movie once and returned to a kitchen filled with an acrid, burnt caramel smoke that took 3 days of open windows to chase away. Keep the water level well above the peels, set a timer for an hour, and then turn it off. If you need to leave the house, just take it off the heat. The scent will linger gently for hours without active simmering. Number 10 is the bathroom habit so deceptively simple that most Westerners dismiss it as obsessive. Yet it is the sole reason Japanese bathrooms smell perpetually like a spa instead of a swamp. The practice, a furo no tear, means that after every single use of the bath or shower room, you take a small handheld squeegee and a super-absorbent microfiber cloth, and you wipe down every wet surface, the walls, the floor, the tub rim, and the fixtures, until the room is visually dry. The mechanism is moisture control. Mold spores, the true source of that earthy, dank bathroom odor, require a damp surface for at least 24 hours to germinate. By physically removing water within minutes, you starve them before they can root. A 2023 environmental study from the Tokyo University of Science found that household bathrooms where surfaces were manually dried after each use had undetectable levels of airborne mold spores compared to those that relied on ventilation fans alone. When I first moved into my tiny Japanese apartment, my landlord, a stern woman in her 70s, handed me a lime green squeegee and demonstrated the technique with such precision that I felt I was learning a martial art. Now my bathroom smells of nothing but dry tile and clean air, even without a window. Try this. It takes 90 seconds. That quick physical labor erases $1,000 worth of chemical mold removers and leaves you with the purest scent of cleanliness there is. One thing, the microfiber cloth you use must be pristine. If it's been sitting damp in a laundry pile, it will transfer that musty smell right onto your tiles. I keep a stack of small, white cloths just for this purpose, and I wash them with hot water and a bit of vinegar, no fabric softener, which coats fibers and reduces absorbency. Swap the cloth every couple of days, and you'll always be wiping with purity. Number 9 is the care and keeping of tatami mats, Those woven rush grass floors that have the power to regulate your entire home's humidity, and therefore its smell. Many people are unaware that tatami mats act as a natural buffer, absorbing excess moisture from the air when it is humid and releasing it back when the air is dry. Much like a giant, silent dehumidifier and humidifier in one. The mechanism for freshness lies in the antimicrobial property of the Igusa rush grass, which naturally contains a compound called phytoncide that suppresses bacterial growth and emits a subtle, sweet, grassy fragrance. This fragrance fades if the tatami is never cared for, but by simply wiping the mats once a month with a barely damp cloth soaked in weak green tea and then allowing them to air dry, you revive both the antimicrobial function and the iconic scent. Researchers at Kumamoto University have documented the sustained antimicrobial activity of Igusa extracts. When I stayed in a traditional Machiya townhouse in Kyoto, the tatami room smelled so deeply green and serene that I would lie on the floor just to breathe it in. The elderly owner showed me her care ritual, a gentle, circular wipe with a cloth, and a reverence that made me realize the floor is not dead material. It is a living, breathing organ of the home. If you have tatami, do not use a vacuum with a rotating brush. It tears the delicate rush fibers, and never, ever spray a chemical cleaner. I once saw a friend use a scented floor cleaner on his tatami, and the fibers turned brown, and the whole room smelled like a cheap laundry product for weeks. The grass died. Instead, only use a soft broom or a damp cloth with water or weak green tea, and always wipe in the direction of the weave. If you do not have tatami, you can find small Igusa mats or rugs. But if you have any natural fiber flooring, treat it with this same mindful moisture. The scent that rises is the smell of a home that is alive. Number 8 introduces living elements into your scent strategy. Specifically the art of kokedama. Moss balls that Japanese homes hang near windows or display in shallow bowls. These are not mere decorations. The surprising mechanism is that moss, especially the types used in kokedama, actively filters volatile organic compounds from the air through its surface area, and crucially, it maintains a microzone of perfectly humid, earthy air around it. This microzone smells of clean soil and rain, a scent called petrichor, which has been shown in studies from the University of Queensland to trigger a calming neurological response in humans. When I first hung a small kokedama of Heimzekura moss in my living room, next to my desk where the air always felt stuffy, I noticed within days that there was a distinct pocket of cool, forest floor freshness whenever I leaned close. It was as if the plant itself was quietly exhaling the essence of a woodland path. You can buy or make a simple moss ball, and you must mist it with water daily. That daily misting, that small act of care, keeps the moss vibrant and keeps a subtle humidity circulating that counters the sterile dryness of air-conditioned homes. Add one to the room where you spend the most time. You will feel the air change before you can even name the scent. A word of caution. Moss is sensitive to chlorine, which is in most tap water. If you use straight tap water, the tips of the moss may turn yellow and crisp. I use filtered water that has sat out overnight to let the chlorine off-gas, or simply collected rainwater when I can. Your moss will stay a vibrant, velvety green, and the microzone of freshness around it will be pure. It's a small, integral detail that makes the difference between a thriving piece of nature and a slowly dying decoration. Number 7 is a trick I discovered in the dead of summer in Osaka, when the humidity felt like a wet blanket and every fabric in the house held a faint sourness. Japanese households often hang a single, slightly damp, fine cotton towel or shibori cloth in the main room, preferably in the path of a fan or an air purifier's output. The mechanism is brilliantly simple. As the water evaporates from the cloth, It creates a localized drop in temperature and simultaneously attracts and traps airborne dust particles, pollen and odor molecules, which stick to the damp fabric instead of circulating back into your lungs. A damp towel can reduce particulate matter in the air by a remarkable margin, a trick documented by researchers at the Tokyo Institute of Technology's Department of Built Environment during indoor air quality tests. I deployed this during a sticky July week when my air conditioner recirculated a stale, slightly mildewy smell. I wrung out a white cotton hand towel, clipped it to a wooden drying rack, and pointed my small fan at it. Within an hour, the room smelled like a linen shirt drying in a breeze, clean, neutral, and vastly more breathable. This is your low-cost, no-electricity air freshener. Replace the towel each morning. That damp cloth is silently scrubbing your air while you sleep. In very humid climates, like the southern U.S. in summer, you must be disciplined. A damp towel that sits all day can become a breeding ground for mold. So I replace mine every single morning, and I wring it so it's just slightly moist, not sopping wet. You want a dry, breezy evaporation, not a soggy rag. The fresh towel ensures the air is being scrubbed, not refouled. And the smell that rises is like laundry dried on a line in the sun, pure cotton and ozone. Number 6 requires you to rethink your mop bucket. Instead of chemical cleaners, Japanese homes frequently wash their hard floors with water that has been infused with charcoal, sumi water. You can make this by placing a few chunks of bamboo charcoal in a large jar of water overnight. The water absorbs the charcoal's negative ionic charge, which when spread across the floor, neutralizes positively charged odor particles and draws out deeply embedded smells from grout and wood grain. This process, known as adsorption, is so effective that Sumitomo Chemical, in a technical bulletin, noted that charcoal-treated water could significantly reduce the odor intensity of common household amines. The first time I mopped my entire apartment with sumi water, I did not smell a thing. I mean, I smelled nothing. Not the chemical pine of a cleaning product, not the leftover ghost of pet accidents from the previous tenant. Just a pure, neutral absence that allowed the natural scent of my wooden furniture to finally be heard. The next morning, I sat on the floor and inhaled, and it was like the apartment had been pressure washed of its own history. Brew your sumi water tonight, and tomorrow, give your floors a silent, scent-free baptism. It is the most profound freshness you will never smell. One note: if you have very light-colored grout or porous stone, the charcoal water can potentially leave a faint gray residue. I recommend you rinse the mop head frequently in clean water, and after you're done, go over the floor with a dry microfiber cloth to pick up any residual particles. But for sealed hardwood and tile, it's perfection. The water will look a little gray, and that's the odor-trapping power you're spreading across your home. Number 5 is a tiny act of fabric love that infuses your entire wardrobe with a whisper of nature. Japanese grandmothers have, for generations, filled small fabric pouches with dried lavender, shiso leaves or green tea leaves, and tucked them into drawers, between folded sweaters, and into the pockets of winter coats. The mechanism here is twofold. The dried plant matter slowly releases essential oils that repel moths and silverfish without the toxic naphthalene smell of mothballs, while also absorbing ambient moisture that causes that stale, closed-in fabric odor. The Department of Textile Sciences at Shinshu University has long studied the moisture-regulating properties of natural plant sachets and their superiority over synthetic desiccants. I spent one afternoon in my Japanese host mother's sunroom, sewing simple cotton squares filled with dried mugwort, and the act itself was so meditative that I forgot I was doing a chore. When I returned to the U.S., I brought a bag of those sachets and placed them in my sock drawer. Now every time I open it, I am greeted by a soft, herbal, almost sacred scent. as if my clothes are being cared for by old, gentle hands. Make your own sachets today and scatter them through every fabric cave in your home. Your closet will start to smell like a herbalist's sanctuary. Make absolutely sure your plant material is bone dry. I once used lavender that still had a bit of moisture from a fresh harvest, and within a week my sweaters smelled musty, and I found a tiny spot of mold on a linen shirt. I had to wash everything and start over. If you're drying your own herbs, leave them in a warm, airy spot for at least 2 weeks, then crumble a leaf. It should shatter, not bend. That's when it's ready. Number 4 is one of the most immediate, radical odor elimination tactics, and it addresses the root of nearly all kitchen stink. Japanese households take out their kitchen garbage, or namagomi, every single evening without fail. They do not let food scraps sit in a bin under the sink for days, festering in a plastic bag. They wrap wet waste in old newspaper to absorb moisture, and then place it in a designated outdoor bin or the communal collection point right away. The surprising detail is that the smell we associate with garbage is almost entirely the result of anaerobic bacteria that bloom within hours on moist, protein-rich waste in a sealed container. By removing the waste from the home daily, you rob those bacteria of their breeding ground. The Japan Sanitation Management Association emphasizes that swift removal of perishable waste is the single most effective strategy for indoor odor control. I remember the first week I forced myself to do this. It felt like a pointless errand in the cold dark, but by day 3, my kitchen had transformed. There was no invisible funk sitting in the corner. The bin itself, even empty, smelled like nothing. Now my ritual is simple. After dinner, all scraps go into a paper bag and out the door. It is a 5-minute discipline that forever eliminates the archaeology of smells we have normalized in Western homes. A small but important detail. Newspaper is great because it's absorbent, but avoid waxed or coated paper, which traps moisture and creates a sealed little anaerobic pouch that actually speeds up putrefaction. Just a few sheets of uncoated newsprint or a paper lunch bag, and then double wrap it in a compostable bag if you want. The key is that the paper wicks away the wetness, so the scraps dry out a bit rather than fester. Number 3 is the unseen hero inside your refrigerator. A small ceramic dish of spent coffee grounds or a cup of rice vinegar. Replaced weekly. While the bamboo charcoal bags work wonders, Japanese homemakers often place a shallow bowl of rice vinegar in the back of the fridge to neutralize stubborn, persistent odors from kimchi, fish, and pungent fermented foods. The acetic acid in the vinegar acts as a magnet for alkaline volatile odor compounds, binding them and rendering them odorless. Coffee grounds, on the other hand, contain nitrogen which helps absorb sulfur-based smells, like eggs or broccoli. Researchers at the Tokyo Metropolitan Industrial Technology Research Institute have validated the deodorizing efficiency of both rice vinegar vapor and spent coffee grounds in enclosed spaces. I used to have a fridge that smelled like a complicated memory of every meal I'd ever cooked. I put a small ramekin of rice vinegar on the middle shelf, changed it every Sunday, and within 2 weeks, the interior smelled so neutral and crisp that I could open the door and smell only the fresh produce. It was the cheapest, simplest fridge reset I have ever done. Do not buy the baking soda box with the peel-off sides. Use a cup of rice vinegar and experience the silent, acid-driven purification that Japanese kitchens rely on. When using coffee grounds, make sure they are completely spent and unsweetened. I once used grounds that had a bit of flavored syrup still on them, and the next day my fridge smelled like a stale vanilla latte and attracted tiny sugar ants. Plain black coffee grounds, dried thoroughly before placing, work wonders. And the rice vinegar, be sure it's pure rice vinegar, not the seasoned kind that has salt and sugar added. Simplicity is everything. Number 2 is the filter trap that most of us ignore until it is too late. In Japan, the range hood filter and the ventilation fan covers in the bathroom are washed, by hand, every single week. The mechanism of odor recirculation is insidious. Those filters become caked with a sticky amalgamation of aerosolized cooking grease and dust, which, when the fan is turned on, blows a concentrated, stale, rancid scent back through the entire home. A mechanical engineering study from the Osaka University Graduate School of Engineering found that a clogged range hood filter could increase the concentration of airborne odor particles in a kitchen by up to 70%, effectively counteracting any cleaning you have done. My wake-up call came when I visited a Japanese friend's impossibly fresh-smelling kitchen, even as she deep-fried tempura. I asked her secret, and she pulled a pristine metal filter from her hood, so clean it shone. She said she soaks it in hot water and baking soda every Friday while she mops the floor. I went home, removed my own filter, and nearly gagged at the layer of yellow-brown sludge. I scrubbed it with rice vinegar and boiling water until it gleamed. And the next time I cooked, the whole house smelled of the food. Not the past 6 months of forgotten bacon. Commit to washing your filters this weekend. Your home will taste the air differently. Be gentle when scrubbing. You don't want to bend the delicate aluminum mesh. I use an old toothbrush and a basin of hot water with a sprinkle of baking soda. Then rinse thoroughly and let it dry completely before putting it back. A damp filter will just start the rancid cycle all over again. I place mine in the sun for an hour if I can, to ensure every nook is bone dry. That shine is the mark of a kitchen that breathes. And now we arrive at number 1. The habit that weaves all 20 tricks together into a single seasonal ritual so powerful it resets not just your home smell, but your entire relationship with the space you live in. The Japanese practice of asoji, the great year-end cleaning, is not just a deep clean. It is a mindful, room-by-room sensory purification that specifically targets every invisible source of odor. From wiping the tops of door frames where greasy dust settles, to moving all furniture and washing the hidden floor beneath, to airing every fabric. And finally, to boiling a pot of water with fresh yuzu peels and a stalk of bamboo grass to fill the home with a scent that signals a complete, sacred renewal. The surprising mechanism is psychological and physical. By physically removing every molecule of old dust, old skin, old cooking residue, you literally eliminate the carrier of stale scent memory. And by sealing the completed clean with a natural, celebratory aroma, you create a powerful olfactory imprint that anchors your brain to a state of clarity and peace. A longitudinal study from the Department of Human Ecology at Achinomizu University tracked the well-being of families who performed traditional asoji and found marked improvements in mood and perceived home satisfaction. I attempted my first asoji alone in a small Tokyo apartment, moving my futon, wiping every sliver of baseboard, and finally kneeling on the tatami with a cup of hot yuzu tea as the steam drifted around me. The silence after I finished was so profound, and the air so impossibly clean that I wept. It was not a house I was in. It was a sanctuary I had built with my own 2 hands. A quiet caution: asoji is not a frantic one-day marathon. In my first attempt, I tried to do everything in a single Saturday. And by the evening I was exhausted, my back ached, and I felt none of the spiritual renewal. I had rushed through the motions. The next year, I broke it into 3 days. One for the kitchen and living areas, one for the bedroom and closets, and one for the baths and entryway. I moved slowly, listened to the sounds of the house, and paused often to sip tea. That's when the tears came on the second day, as I wiped the top of a bookshelf and found a forgotten photo. The process became a meditation. So do not rush. Let asoji be a slow, intentional, even joyful exorcism of the old. Then seal it with yuzu. You do not need to wait for New Year's. Pick one Sunday this month. Do the deepest clean your home has ever seen. Do it with the windows wide open, with rice vinegar and green tea and charcoal. And then close it with a simmering pot of citrus peels. Your home will smell so fresh, so alive, so deeply and purely clean, that you will finally understand what a home is supposed to feel like.